Another way of managing state between the client and the server in PHP is to use the query string. When a user requests a web page with a query string parameter, the value of the parameter is sent to the server in the URL. PHP can then retrieve the value of the query string parameter and use it to manage the state between the request. So basically the query string is a set of name and value pairs. So it usually appended to the target URL. So it's a query string probably consists of a single text string containing one or more pieces of information. So any form that we submitted with the get method, we know that it automatically add a question mark and append the query string to the URL of the server-side script. So in order to pass the information from one page to another page using a query string, so we need to add the question mark immediately after the URL and followed by the query string containing the information in name value pairs. And remember to separate the name value pairs with the query string by ampersands. So this is an example. If I wanted to send the query string information, use the question mark name value pair. You can see that there are a bunch of name value pairs separated by ampersand. So that's what I'm sending right to the server. So in order to pass the query string information from one PHP script to another PHP script, we can use the echo. We can echo the values in the first script. So I can use the echo here like this, right? So echo dollar f name, right? And next second one is echo dollar last name, first name, last name, and then occupation, etc. Then I can actually the important thing is the values will be visible in the query string. Okay, so so output of the content of the query string looks like this now. Okay, so if I use the echo to get what do you call, to display the query string details, I'll get this information. Right? So I use the super global get method in order to do this. So one of the key important thing about the query string, it is using the query string for managing the state can also actually has a security risk, because it's possible for the users to modify the value of the parameters using a browser, developer tools, or other methods. So to mitigate risk, it is important to validate and sanitize all the inputs from the client before using it in your application. Okay, let's go through an example. So I created a file called index2php, so that actually contains a link with the query string parameter. So here you can see in this example I generate a unique user ID using unique ID function and storing it in a session super global, and I am also creating a link to a page PHP file with a query string. You can see the query string here. So I use a question mark, right, and then the passing parameters. So this query string parameter name user ID, um, setting its value to the user ID, right? So that's the user ID, and right. And then I create the PHP file that retrieves um, the query string parameter and uses it to manage the state, right? So I think about I'll come to this later on in the next video. So I capture the user ID and then I call him back. Um, so basically in this example what we did, we retrieved the value of the user ID query string parameter using the get super global, and I also using a session start function to start the session and retrieve the user ID that was stored in the session super global in the index2 PHP file. So I can then use this user ID to manage a state between different requests, right? So once we load the index2 PHP file web browser, and for example if I load it, I'll get this clickable link now. um, so I can actually then display this session. So you can see in the in this query string, you can see the use ID displayed there as well. So in this way we can use the query string to manage a state between the client and the server in the PHP. So we are generating a unique user ID for each session and storing it the session super global, and then passing it to the server using a query string parameter, right? Query string parameter. Um, Using parameter here. So this allows us to associate the data with the particular user across multiple requests, even if the user is not logged in or even authenticated, right? So that's the example of query string parameter or query string to save the state details.